Although the transfer window may feel like it's absolutely miles away, we are only 2 months away from it reopening, and we've had some fairly big news around Leeds United on a few different deals. First up, we have to dive into the potential interest in Crysencio Summerville. Fabrizio Romano, on his, I think, blog thing, released a article talking about Crysencio Summerville and the potential interest in him. It looks like there's interest in him coming from Burnley, Everton, and Bournemouth at the very least. They were interested in the summer, they're still interested now. All three of those sides look pretty average at the moment in the Premier League and do not have that much of a cutting edge to them, so it's easy to see them still wanting to sign Crysencio Summerville. After his fantastic start to the season so far, you could see other clubs potentially having a look in as well, but I do not see us wanting to sell in the slightest, given the fact that he has been one of our best players at the moment. He said that he decided to stay at Leeds in the summer, but Fabrizio Romano also emphasised that it could change. In my personal opinion, I don't see Crysencio Summerville looking at any of those clubs and thinking that is a more enticing project than Leeds United at the moment. Burnley potentially on the way down. Bournemouth have proven that they are not very good at onboarding new talent and getting them to work in a system. Iraola, I don't know if he was sacked or is on the verge of being sacked because I've not paid that much attention to Bournemouth, but he doesn't look like he's going to be staying in the job for too long if he's still there. And Everton are improving, but I don't see them having the funds necessary to sign Crysencio Summerville on a permanent deal. There is a takeover ongoing, but that doesn't help the FFP issue because they've already had a lot of money invested in them. They're very, very close to the FFP limit and potentially could be getting a points deduction. Moving to any of those clubs seems a little bit daft because he'll either find himself back in the Championship next season or in a Premier League club that can't actually permanently sign him. Aside from that, we also have to discuss Jack Harrison's evolving situation. He went to Everton towards the end of the summer transfer window, and when I saw that move, I was like, that's one that makes sense, but it's also very, very weird because there is a lot of potential for accidental relegation by going to that club. He's been performing quite well there, though. He's played 6 matches, he's had 3 goal involvements, that's 2 assists and a goal. I think the goal was absolutely nasty from 25-30 yards sort of distance on the volley. Very, very nice. But we found out a little bit more about what it will take for us to sell him permanently to Everton in the summer or beyond. And it's a quite high number because his recent contract that he signed drives up his value through the roof. The fact that he's got more time on his contracts means that we can wait. We don't have to sell him immediately, and Everton will have to pay a little bit more cash. The price tag has been set, and it looks like it will be £30 million. Now, to me, that says that it's Everton, you don't get to sign him number because we're fully aware that Everton have FFP issues. They're paying for a new stadium. They're going through a complete change in ownership. Combine that with the fact that they might be getting a points deduction anyway because of the FFP stuff. I don't see them investing a huge amount of money into a winger that, although he's been good for them, hasn't quite set the world on fire. Everton fans were, for example, like complaining about him recently, which is a little bit daft considering that Everton don't have that many attacking players anyway, and he's one of their higher quality forwards. But it is what it is. I don't see him moving to them in the summer. If we stick to that £30 million price tag, I can see other clubs potentially wanting him. He feels like a Fulham signing, for example. But if he's able to keep his own standards quite high, we could sell him next summer for a fairly decent sum of money. I don't think he's going to lose value out on loan, which is more than can be said for a lot of the loanees, including Brendan Aronson, but we'll see. If there is a sale, and it feels like a quite unlikely event, we've also been linked to another player recently, and that is Jean Arias, who plays for, I think, Fluminense in Brazil. Now, you won't have heard of this guy because he's a fairly young winger playing over in Brazil. We don't really hear much about that division in the slightest, aside from the top-tier talent like Endrick, for example. And although we haven't heard of him, a lot of top-tier clubs have. Rangers, West Ham, Crystal Palace, and Fulham are some names that have just been floating around him because they've got interest in signing a very, very promising winger. If we were to lose either Summerville or Jack Harrison, he'd be the perfect replacement because he's tricky with his feet, he's good at creating chances, he's good at finishing chances. He's got very similar numbers to Summerville so far this season, as far as I know. And in addition to that, it's a fairly affordable market. Now, you look at Premier League wingers and you think that the average Premier League winger is going to sell for 25 million at the very least. Dan James was 25 million pounds to us. And we sort of need to avoid that trap because we are currently in the Championship. And even if we are in the Premier League next season, we want to be a bit more careful with our money than we were when we were signing the likes of Aronson. And Rutter had a very, very high fee, let's not forget that. And as much as he's been very, very good this season, it's hard to justify 35 million quid. And the Brazilian market's quite the opposite. There's not much TV money over there. There's not much interest from European clubs because European clubs are primarily looking at Europe. They've not got the budgets to keep an eye on Brazil at all times, which means that it could be a fairly affordable purchase for us. Maybe £5 to £10 million. Admittedly, it's more than Summerville cost us, I think, but very, very good value for a very, very good winger. And finally, it seems like Daniel Farke has had a little bit of a youth realisation. Because of our relative lack of squad depth at the moment, we've had a lot of youth players on the bench for a lot of the season so far, and that includes Charlie Cresswell and Mateo Joseph. Neither of them have been available for the under-21s very much, primarily because they've been busy. They've been with the first team. They've been training with the top tier of players in our club. And that's not been very, very good for their development, because if they're not playing competitive football, if they're just going through training sessions, their development's going to fall backwards and they're not going to keep on growing as footballers. And that's changed a little bit now since Daniel Farke has given Mateo Joseph some under-21s minutes. This is a very, very good development, in my opinion. He can still get called up to the senior squad. He can still play for the under-21s and get some good minutes in his legs, keep developing, keep improving. He hadn't played a single minute of football all season, either 21s or in the senior squad, because he's been in that weird limbo state. I think if Daniel Farke sorts that and we get more fluidity between the first team and the youth team, we'll be in a much better situation, at least in my opinion. It's a weird spot for Mateo Joseph because he's coming towards the most important years for his development. He would be an absolutely perfect striker for League One or League Two, but towards the end of the window, we couldn't really risk loaning him out because we didn't know what our numbers looked like. And if we do, I think we'd need another number 9, especially with Joe Gelhardt now injured with something wrong with his hand needing surgery. Not the best, but it's good that he's able to get 21's minutes. And it's also potentially a big realisation for Charlie Cresswell. Charlie Cresswell has also been in that weird flux position, keeps getting picked for the senior squad, but keeps not getting minutes, completely understandably, because Rodon and Strauch have been top tier. I keep saying top tier, but they've been incredibly good so far this season and not really replaceable. So if he can play more 21s football, that would be very, very good. Ideally, we see him developing a little bit more going into next season as well, because if we go up and if we don't sign Joe Rodon permanently, maybe Charlie Cresswell can fill that gap, but it's far from guaranteed. Anyway, that was the news surrounding Leeds United. I will have, I think, a stream coming up either tonight or tomorrow before the Leicester City match. I'll also have a pre-recorded preview for the Leicester City match coming up, which should be good fun. I did one slightly earlier in the week as well, so give that one a look too. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below about any of the news stories. Like, subscribe, and even become a channel member if you like. I will see you later.